Welcome to Stories with Soul. I am your host, Jamie Ice, musician turned entrepreneur and co-founder of 6th Ave Homes and 6th Ave Storytelling. Over the past 10 years, I have launched multiple successful businesses and have become obsessed with all things entrepreneurship and marketing. I've been on a personal quest to unpack what it takes to make and grow a great brand. One thing that I've discovered is that stories are powerful and that storytelling has the power to set a brand apart. Join me as I dive into the stories of the heavy-hitting leaders, entrepreneurs, artists, and business owners in our community to hear their biggest wins, greatest losses, and their best business secrets. There's a story behind every great brand. Welcome to Stories with Soul. Stories with Soul is brought to you by 6th Ave Storytelling, an organic marketing company building standout brands on the foundation of story. We help small businesses grow by crafting and sharing their stories, because when small business thrives, cities and communities prosper. Stories with Soul is brought to you by the Fort Worth Business Press, your source for news and business information in and around Fort Worth. Sign up for the Business Press's twice daily newsletter or become an insider using the storytelling coupon code STORYTELLING10, all one word, to stay up to date with the people, companies, and issues that matter most to Fort Worth. Head to fortworthbusiness.com to subscribe. I am a huge fan of the Business Press. I've been a subscriber for years. It keeps me up to date with everything that is going on in Fort Worth. Love it. Go subscribe for the newsletter. You won't regret it. Welcome to Stories with Soul. I am your host, Jamie Ice. I'm joined by
Jimmy Williams.
And we have the legendary Betsy Price in the house today. I want to read your bio real quick.
You're welcome to, but I'm sure it's boring.
Well, I don't know that anybody doesn't know who you are. I think...
Yeah, that's a pretty good assumption right there.
I think there's no one that does know you, but I'm going to read it just because we have it. And so after running her own successful business for 17 years, which I want to hear a little bit more about, Betsy turned to public service and was first elected in 2000 to serve as the county tax assessor. Not afraid to ask tough questions, Betsy made her department one of the most efficient in Texas, saving taxpayers millions of dollars, serving as Fort Worth mayor for a decade, which is crazy. Betsy excelled at improving the basic services of her growing city with stronger public safety, fiscal responsibility, and job growth. She accomplished this while also reducing the city's property tax rate by 12%, one of the largest tax cuts among Texas cities. You earned a bachelor's degree from the University of Texas at Arlington, together with Tom, her husband of 49 years, which that is incredible.
It's a long time.
We're going to get you some marriage advice here in a little bit, too. You have 3 adult children, Catherine, Philip, and Paul, and you've been an active member of your church for 4 decades, and in her spare time, you're an avid cyclist, what I think a lot of people know, competitive clay shooter, which I did not know, but we were talking a little bit about that earlier, and enjoyed spending quality time with her many grandchildren. How many grandkids do you have?
6.
6. Well, I am so glad you're here.
I'm delighted to be here. Thank y'all both for having me.
Yeah. So where I want to, so one of the things I'm most excited about, I've known you for a
long time,
Jamie. Since I was probably in middle school.
Yeah.
So
you might have been late elementary.
Maybe late elementary. So Philip is your middle son, right?
No, Philip is my youngest.
Youngest. Okay. Mm-hmm. And he was best friends in elementary school and middle school with my little brother, Jeff. Mm-hmm. And so I always just knew you as Philip's mom. We went to South Padre together when we were kids.
We went down, y'all body surfed and
we body surfed.
Fished, and we just had a big time.
And so I think the thing that was crazy for me, as like a middle school boy, and this is my friend's mom, to see you just from that to like who you are now, this iconic institution in Fort Worth, like how, and I remember when you first ran for tax assessor, and did you have a Suburban or something?
Mm-hmm. I did.
Put the big yellow sign on.
We had big yellow signs on it, and big yellow signs on Tom's truck.
And we put them in our yard, but just, I want to know the backstory. I think everyone knows you as the mayor. Everyone, like, you've done, you're probably like one of the most liked mayors we've ever had. You just did a lot. But I don't understand how you are wired to have done what you did. And so I would love to just start like, wow, where did that come from?
Gosh, I'm not sure I know how I'm wired either some days. A lot of people have heard me say this probably, but maybe not. I grew up in a family my dad was a small business owner, a car dealer, and my mother had 4 kids. They had 4 kids, and she was classic volunteer parent, PTA, Cub Scouts, campfire, all that, Sunday school, all of that. And they always said you have to take whatever talents you've been given, whether it's money, personality, looks, passion, whatever, and give something back to your community. And I've always volunteered. I mean, I ran my own business, but I was junior league member, women's club, taught Sunday school at UCC, was Cub Scout. Your brother Jeff was in my Cub Scout group.
I think were you also like my Sunday school teacher?
I was your Sunday school teacher at one point. Yeah. So I kind of got into it through the volunteer route. And I never intended to get into politics. I just liked having my business and doing stuff on the side and volunteering and making the city better, making our area better. And my business put me in with the tax office. I had a company that did title and licensing and property tax work for the car dealers in town. And I kept saying, so be careful what you say, but I kept saying, this office, the tax office, is so poorly run. Somebody ought to fix it. And I said that for a year or more, and finally a couple of the car dealers set me down and said, stop saying somebody ought to fix it. You need to fix it. And I thought, I'd have to run for office to do that. And went home, Tom went, are you out of your mind? Run for public office? But the more we talked about it, the more we said, maybe this is the right thing to do.
And you legitimately never had thought about public office before?
No, I never had. I've always thought I'd worked on people's campaigns. I'd worked on Bob Boland's campaigns and Ken
What do you mean
Barr's.
by worked on their campaign?
Volunteered, knocked doors for them, made phone calls, put out signs.
Did people tell you like you should do this? I mean, before that, like you should go into politics?
What my friends all said, and all my business associates at the time, before they started drafting me for tax assessor, said, because I was passionate about schools.
Okay.
I served on 2 or 3 superintendents committees and school board appointed committees, and people said, we always thought you'd run for school board, and that was your passion. That's still my passion is education. But I just said, no, I don't want to do that. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
But then this came around, and I did it and served.
So you said yes to it.
Yeah, it took 6 months to get me to say yes. And then I did, and we shaped that office up. The average wait time in that office when I took office was 43 minutes.
Okay.
And when I left, the average wait time was 7 minutes. And
made it speedy.
Had cut the budget by several $100,000, and while we gained 200,000 accounts, and cut the staffing and still delivered the service. And we added credit cards. I mean, that was 2000 when I was elected, and the government offices didn't take credit cards, didn't do ACH transfers or anything.
It was all like old school checks.
It was all old school checks.
Yeah.
And they couldn't process the checks. It was so slow. It was wasting money and time. And so we changed all that. And we were on the I always said we were on the cutting edge. And our banker was at Chase for the county. And he always said, because they were our partner, we were further along than they were. We did a big pilot with them. And he said, no, we're on the bleeding edge and down about a pint.
Yes.
So, but my staff, I just always said, you can't work here unless you're willing to serve the public and unless you want to be creative and innovative. We're not doing business as usual.
Wow. And you shook things up?
Shook them up, yeah.
Okay, so I have like 20 questions from So I want to go back to that bit of advice. You said your mom told you that. But as a kid, did that mean anything to you? Like, you don't really know. Did that register as a child?
Yeah, I think it probably did, because my mother was real involved in the community. My dad worked all kinds of odd hours. I mean, owning his own business.
Yeah, and he sold cars.
He was a car dealer, independent car dealer.
And what was your mom doing?
She was full-time mother.
Okay.
Homemaker and volunteer. So she volunteered. She did Campfire Girls and Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts and PTA and all of those things too. And she sewed. She was a seamstress. She had a degree in fashion design. And
oh, really?
She made all kinds of wonderful things for us girls. And my brother, she bought all his stuff.
So but you remember her giving
But I
that
remember
advice.
her saying that to us over and over. And I remember going to things with her when I was little and watching her be involved and run meetings and things and thinking, yeah, this is kind of cool. You know, and it just sunk in. The first time I can remember really volunteering when I was 7th grade.
Oh, wow. Early.
I taught swimming lessons at the old Elks Club to blind kids.
Oh, wow.
That was among the first I think that was through an Optimist deal. My dad had a friend who was in the Optimist Club, and they got us to come volunteer.
Wow.
And so this idea of serving and giving back.
It's just kind of in my DNA.
Okay. My other part of your DNA, you have, so you're charismatic, and you have
Well, thank you.
more energy than the average person. Like, were
Yeah.
you always like that as a kid? Like, was
Pretty
that,
much, yeah.
and was that something that you just were born with, or was it because your dad, I'm assuming?
My mother was real quiet and was really smart. She was a member of Mensa, the genius group.
Oh, really?
And
That's
she
interesting.
was. And my dad was very charismatic.
He's just selling cars.
Everybody knew
He's a car
Wayne.
salesman.
Yeah, he was a carman,
Yeah.
you know, and had been in the military. And he and I were kind of two peas in a pod. And
And where are you at in the?
I'm the fourth.
You're
of
so
4
you're-
kids.
so
I'm
you're
the
the
baby.
baby.
The babies are the best, of course. But I kind of come by it honestly. I mean, I had a lot of energy always, and I guess I've always had that personality.
Did they say you
my oldest sister is 10 years older than me. When I was sworn in the first time as tax assessor, she did my swearing in, and she said to the audience, she's all yours. She's bossed us all her life.
was gonna
Now she
ask.
can boss y'all.
I was going to ask if you were bossy or
Yeah,
driven.
no, I was both.
Have you heard the anecdote from Sheryl Sandberg, the COO of Facebook, talks about how we call young girls
Yeah,
bossy,
bossy.
but
Young men are driven.
are driven. Yeah. We joke about that. in
And
the
I
house.
think that'll go away at some point, I hope. But, you know,
But was that you? You were
Yeah.
telling people what to do?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I was president of my sorority in college, and high school charity clubs, was an officer in that. I think was president of the FHA, which Future Homemakers, and I love people.
Yeah.
I've always been fascinated by people, what makes them tick, and how do you motivate people? How do you lead them to do what you want them to do? And not that they're going to do what you want to, but how do you get people to do the right thing?
Yeah. But there's a difference between being fascinated with people and being able to lead people.
Yeah.
Like some people just naturally, it's everything you said. You're like, I was a president. I was in charge of this.
Yeah.
Sounds like you just took charge and ran with it.
Pretty
and
much.
People
I was
follow
bossy,
you.
remember? But people, I was blessed. I've always been able to get people. I mean, I just truly love people, and I've always been able to have people working for me and helping me and volunteering. And
Because it's not bossing, it's motivating.
it's motivating, yeah.
And
And it's coming alongside people. And I've never been afraid to do anything. I'm not going to ask you to do something that I wouldn't do or that I haven't already done. I don't believe as a leader that you set yourself anywhere on a pedestal. You lead from the bottom. The best leaders listen to the people on the bottom and work their way up.
And is that something you had to learn, or is that something that
Probably not. Being the fourth of, 4, I was low on the pecking order, and I had to figure out how to get what I wanted.
Truly lead from the bottom.
Yeah.
Because you were the youngest.
so went to college? And when did you and Tom meet?
I met Tom in high school. We went to high school
were
together.
y'all high school
but I
sweethearts?
had one date with him in high school, and it was, as he said, you were much more. I was big in horses and rode horseback, and you were much more into horses than you were into the guys. And I said, yeah, and you were a lot more into football than you were into the gals. But I dated his best friend for a long time in high school, and then I met him when I went to Tech for 2 years and came back home at one summer and went to UTA for summer school.
Yeah.
Ran into him at a fraternity party again, and decided to stay at UTA because he was there.
Oh, really? Okay, that was the motivating.
I was home from Tech because that was 71, I guess, and the car business took a serious nosedive, and my parents had 3 in college at the same time.
Oh, wow.
They said, you're the youngest, the others were seniors and second semester juniors. And they said, you can come home for a while and go back, and I just never went back.
Oh, you never went back?
Never went back to Tech. I went
just
to
Tech.
UTA.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And what did you study?
pre-vet animal science. My degree is in biology and animal science.
Animal science?
And I was going to vet school and actually got accepted at A&M in one of the first classes at the vet school that would have had women in it.
No.
Oh, wow.
But we decided we'd rather get married and go to work than go to vet school.
That was sort of the motivating factor was y'all wanted to get married.
I always say we make plans and God laughs and says, I got other plans for you. So
wow, so y'all got married
in
and
72.
This episode of Stories with Soul is brought to you by 6th Ave Storytelling. At 6th Ave Storytelling, we know that stories aren't just for bedtime, they're powerful marketing tools, and we've seen what they can do. Want to see for yourself? Download our free PDF, The Storytelling Pathway, on our website, 6avstorytelling.com. It's everything your business needs to be successful. This is what I've used to grow my businesses and hundreds of others. It's a strategy that has led to #1 albums, built large followings, and has helped generate millions of dollars in revenue, thousands of leads, and tons of traffic. I've seen client after client reach their goals, which is why I'm crazy excited to share it with you today. I'm offering this for free because it's my personal mission to support small business owners and entrepreneurs no matter where they are at on their journey. Because small businesses are the heartbeat of a city, and they really are what make it special. 6th Avenue Storytelling has helped brands across the country grow their business using these exact steps. Head to 6avstorytelling.com and download the Storytelling Pathway to get your step-by-step guide today. Stories with Soul is brought to you by Fort Worth Business Press. The Fort Worth Business Press has been instrumental for me as a business owner. They were actually the first publication to ever cover 6th Avenue Homes and also 6th Avenue Storytelling, which were huge wins for our companies. I also have been following along for years. I've been a subscriber. It has allowed me to keep up to date with everything that is happening in the business community and see what other business owners are doing and just stay involved in all sort of the economic development of what is happening in Fort Worth. If you are in any way involved in business, you should go subscribe and sign up for their publication, sign up for their twice daily newsletter, and they're actually offering a storytelling discount right now if you listen to the podcast. Become an insider using the storytelling code storytelling10, all one word, lowercase, to stay up to date with the people and companies and issues that matter most. Visit fortworthbusinesspress.com to sign up today. And then, and when did you start your business?
You know, first Tom took a job in Beaumont. We lived in Beaumont for nearly 3 years, Beaumont, Port Arthur area, and I worked for Texas Employment Commission then. Okay. We came back up here, and I worked for my dad at his dealership for a good little while.
And what were you doing there?
Just kind of doing, working in his office, doing clerical help and stuff. And I had 2 kids at that point. I had Catherine and Paul, and then 7 years later we had Philip. Mm-hmm. And I started that business, I don't know what year I started the business, in the early mid-90s, I guess, kind of as a spinoff from working for my dad.
And were you doing you're doing the title work for cars? Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I started doing some property tax work for him.
And were you entrepreneurial at all?
Yeah, always. My dad was a true entrepreneur. He never worked for anybody. Always had his own business, from a garage. I mean, was in the military, and then he had a garage in the small town where they were from, and saw a niche after World War II that Fort Worth was going to boom, and they came to Fort Worth in 1945 and opened his own business.
He came to Fort Worth like opportunistically. Like
he said, "This is a spot for a good entrepreneur."
Interesting. He told you that like as a kid.
He built a big business. So, and it just kind of was in our family. My grandfather was an entrepreneur, and my brother is, Tom works for himself. So
he started. He has
his own insurance agency.
And did he start that around the same time?
Tom actually started his agency in 1980. Okay. Decided he was a claims adjuster for Farm Bureau, and he was tired of working for corporate. He wanted to do his own thing. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We rubbed off on him, my family.
I'm going to interrupt. Whenever you need to describe yourself for me, because I'm trying, you have these stereotypes of, I'm imagining you have 2 kids, 3 kids where you started your business? 3. Mm-hmm. 3 at the time you started?
I had 2 when I started it.
When you started
a third one later.
Okay. But from what you're describing, you probably are volunteering at every one of your kids' schools and pouring countless hours into some other organizations.
Taking them and picking them back up.
Yeah, taking them and doing everything because now you're starting your own business, working for yourself. And we are interviewing business owners, a lot of entrepreneurs here that are just like talking about how they're just so swamped. They don't even have kids in the mix yet. But I'm imagining you are like, are you this super mom that just decided I'm just going to create this business? Are you more of an entrepreneur that still just has a love for their kids? Are you like, if you had to define yourself of like, how would you describe yourself at that moment where you're being a mom, super mom, volunteering, you're still serving, I'm sure, in some sort of capacity.
Oh, yeah, too many.
And then you're deciding to start your own business. And most people will be like, I'm just an entrepreneur. Or I'm just a mom that happened to do this. How would you describe yourself in that time period?
My family's always most important. My kids and my husband were the most important thing in my life and still are, my grandkids now. And I wanted something that I could control the hours in. I could control the amount of time that I could still be there to be their campfire leader or their Cub Scout leader, that I could still be at their games on the weekends or in the evenings or at dance recitals. And I thought the only way I'm going to be able to do that is to control my own destiny. Okay. And that's to start my business.
Yeah.
And I didn't get much sleep because I'm a notorious night owl. Not so much now, but I used to be. And so I'd get everybody to bed and start doing my work for the next day
at
night and work till maybe 1 o'clock at night and then get it all buttoned up, so to speak, to go to the courthouse. And I'd get up, get everybody dressed, drive them to school and go. And then Philip came along, and I had a woman who helped me. She'd sometimes go to the courthouse and sometimes babysit Philip. And I had another girl who worked for us some too. So it just kind of came because I wanted to control the amount of time.
So it's a control thing. Going back to
an intentional,
a little bit, yeah. It's an entrepreneurial thing because I liked being able to create something, but it's also a bit about being able to control.
You want your own destiny.
I want to control my own destiny.
And do it your own way.
Yeah.
And did that? I'm assuming that carried into I could do public office. I think there's a better way to do it.
Yeah, really. I mean, having run a business and volunteered and run a home, and there, you may or may not realize that you guys do. You all have kids. There's a lot to run in a household.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, you got groceries and you got clothes and bedtime and keeping the house up and all the events and your friends and all, and it just all comes together and gives you a really depth of experience when you've done it for a long time, that if you're smart, you can translate it to something else.
Sure.
And that's what I did. And when I was elected tax assessor, I thought, okay, well, this isn't much different than running 7 offices countywide, but it wasn't a whole lot different than 180 employees, than running my business, which was small, and running my family's life.
Did you step down from your business?
I did.
You did.
I
so
did.
You, I'm assuming, gave up on income, and you worked really hard for this thing.
I did. And we did have smaller children then, but the good news was the tax assessor's office is an administrative position. It's a full-time job. At most county offices are, and it has a salary. I mean, I can't remember what I was making when I first started, but when I left, it was like $132,000.
It's a good paying job. Yeah.
But I mean, I worked. I'm a workaholic, I guess, but I would work about 10 hours a day and then a half day on Saturday unless the kids had a game, and then I'd go in after game and work.
Wow.
At least the first 6 or 8 years till we got everything kind of rolling. Then I cut it back and worked about 8 or 9 hours a day.
That's a lot. But you were still there. You were always there.
I was there. I was always there.
Picking us up and all.
I'd take off and leave the office and go pick up kids and take y'all to sports or activities and then go back down there at night. When everybody was fed.
So when you came into the tax assessor's office, you came in because you were frustrated.
Yeah.
You were like, this is broken, this is inefficient.
Well, it's our dollars. It's our, it's everybody goes to tax office. Everybody's got to license their car.
Yeah, you're always
And everybody that owns property has to pay their property tax bill. And the other thing nobody realizes is the tax assessor signs all the liquor licenses
Oh,
for the
interesting.
county.
I did not know that.
Yeah, Philip went when he turned 21, did a roller bar party, and came home when he could speak the next morning. He said, "Mother, your name's on every gin joint in town."
That's awesome. So did you ruffle some feathers?
Oh, yeah.
And they were like, who is this mom coming in? Like, did you have any idea? Like, and you said there was like 180 people. Mm-hmm. That's a big jump.
It's a big operation. Yeah.
Did you?
I knew a lot of them because my business had put me in the tax office 3 days a week. So I'd gotten to know a lot of the staff, and I knew their frustrations with what was going on. I knew those who were just biding time till they could retire, and I knew those who were chomping at the bits to be cut loose to make it more efficient.
Mm-hmm. So what'd you do? What was your like?
We just kind of, I knew where I'd been involved with them long enough that I could see where the holes were, first on the motor vehicle side.
Yeah.
And that was an easy change because that was my business.
Uh-huh.
On the property tax side, it was a little more of a learning curve because I'd kind of helped my dealers, but didn't know that. And I had to go to school because Tarrant County had never had a licensed tax assessor before. They had a exemption because the prior tax assessor couldn't pass her exam.
Okay.
To be real honest with you. You had 3 chances to pass it, and they got an exemption that she was an administrator. And even to today, large counties are exempt from the tax elected official doing it. But I did it anyway. It was 138 hours of classroom work. And I got my license in 18 months.
Holy cow.
First licensed one in Tarrant County.
Were you just exhausted?
Pretty much, yeah. Because I had to go to Austin all the time for.
Did you at any point, did you regret it? Were you like,
no, I didn't regret it.
You
I
didn't?
learned so much, and it was such a good, the motor vehicle side I learned and met so many wonderful people. The property tax side I learned and met so many people. And then when I was recruited to run for mayor, that was a real stepping stone to know how tax code works and how
it all
works. That's huge.
The financial base for the city works.
Was there ever a point where you're like, did you feel overwhelmed at all in terms of like, what am I, I now have 180 people?
No, I'm probably stupid enough. It didn't ever cross my mind to be overwhelmed.
So would you say that's confidence or like naivety or
it's probably both?
Or
yeah, I wanted to take a step back and, well, two questions. One is like, you said, Jamie asked, did you ruffle some feathers? And you said yes. We didn't really dive into that. So like, what is your reputation coming into public office? Like, is historically tax assessor, is that something that you like work kind of into? Like you get into a public office position of some sorts and you kind of work your way up? And was it like, who is this lady? She, private business owner coming in?
Yeah,
like,
it's the tax assessor's been both, but historically it's somebody that's either been involved with the Democrat or the Republican Party or somebody that's held another office because it's a big operation.
Yeah.
So was that big for you to jump into that?
Mm-hmm. I ran against the party chairman, the Republican Party chairman, and a couple of other people.
Wow.
And he just assumed because he had been involved with the party chairman that it was his office. And that one of the other guys was a guy that had worked for one of the law firms that did delinquent tax collections, and he just assumed because he knew them all it was his. And none of them had a plan. Well, none of them had a plan to improve the office. It was just business as usual.
And
the public was frustrated with the office.
Well, that was my next question is how do you go from volunteering at schools, like spending time with your family, running your own business to like, there's no book on how to run a campaign. I mean, I know there probably is. There's probably a million books.
Probably are.
How do you jump from that? What was that like? Okay, I'm going to run. Well, like now what? What was those? What are those next steps?
I remember going to see. I talked to some friends that had been involved in politics, and one of them was one of the county commissioners, who's still a dear friend of mine, who's retiring this year after 30-something years. And he just said, and then another friend of mine who's a judge, and they said, hire a consultant, but you gotta figure out how you're going to tackle this and who's going to fund it. And I went to see probably the biggest political consultant at the time in Tarrant County, and he said, you can't do this. You don't have the political name ID. You haven't been involved in the party. I said, I've never voted in anything but Republican in all my years, and I've always voted. He said, well, that's not enough. The party doesn't know you. The community doesn't
you've
know
never
you.
done any of this before.
Yeah, and he said, I just don't think you can do it. Don't think you've got the political name ID to do it. And I said, it made me mad.
Did they egg you on?
And I said, well, then you just need to sit back and watch. And so
That's what I'm talking about right there.
Born telling them, shut your mouth.
Yeah,
I'm
a
doing
different
it.
consultant.
You need to sit back
who
and
said,
watch.
you can do this. And so we did. And afterwards, this other consultant who said no when I won, and won handily, said, I have never in my life seen a grassroots organization like yours. And he'd been doing this 25 years at that point. He said, you had every PTA mom in town. You had every soccer mom in town. You had all the baseball dads helping. You had all the Sunday school teachers. You had every junior league mother. He said, everywhere we went, there were people with signs on their cars that said, vote for Betsy. And they were waving. He said, every carpool mom in the county knew you. And he said it was incredible to watch the grassroots support that came out. I said, I told you we could win this. And he said, they all went to vote, and they took all their friends. And the party found out a good lesson, work with grassroots people.
Yeah. And I think people were excited. I think people were probably excited, too. Like, this is a mom.
This is one of us.
Yeah.
Yeah. It wasn't business as usual.
Yeah.
It wasn't just another. For me, this has never been about politics. I never wanted to be a politician. It's about service. I knew we could make a change in the tax office that would serve the citizens well. When I ran for mayor, it was the same thing. I knew the city needed changing. And
In what way? How so?
Well, for one thing, the city's finances were in terrible shape, and they had to be straightened out. And the city pension was in awful shape. I mean, we were in danger of either not having a pension or having a tax rate that was so high the citizens couldn't afford it. And Fort Worth had the highest tax rate already of any large urban city. And I knew that was not sustainable any longer. And it was frustrating. And I wasn't looking to run for mayor. I got recruited to run for mayor.
How does one get recruited to run for mayor?
Well, a group of people.
Who makes that choice?
Nobody, not any one person, but a group of people who were politically involved in the city and had the city's best interests at heart, kept coming and saying, you need to do this. You've got a reputation for being a bit of a fixer because you fixed the tax office.
And you lowered taxes a lot.
Yeah, we did. We made it more efficient. And they said, in the city's finances, and you straightened out the tax office finances, you're well known, you've got a name ID that people appreciate what you've done, and you got to come to the city and solve it. When I took office, we had a $50 million, $49 million. The city was $49 million in the hole that was unaccounted for.
Whoa.
Just essentially, their bookkeeper kept saying, it's not lost, it's just a accounting area.
How do you have a $50 million accounting?
Overspending.
Okay.
And without knowing what's coming. And then we had a growing, almost $1 billion liability on our pension. And no one had tackled the pension. And I understand why they haven't. I understand why it hadn't been done, but it just wasn't done. And I knew that we had to settle it. I mean, I had a family here and a business, and Tom had a business, and our kids were going to live here. And I knew the liability we were putting on the citizens was not sustainable. And we wouldn't recruit new businesses if we stayed where we were. So we tackled the pension, and police and fire hated me. I campaigned for fixing it.
Because how do you fix
when I left, they liked me, but well, we knew that we were going to have to address overtime issues that were being gamed into the pension. We were going to have to address their contributions, the city contributions. It's very multi-pronged, and it took 5 or 6 years to get it settled. And now they understand they'll have a pension, and they understand that we can continue to grow the force, both fire and police, because the city can recruit new businesses and have people coming in, and the city's in firm financial shape.
Well, and to speaking of that personally, like I mean, I remember that, and you know,
It was a fight.
Yeah, it was a fight, but I mean, it was a matter of, is this going to be sustainable? And whenever
it wasn't sustainable where we were.
The police officers that were retiring at the time, they have a great pension, but
the young ones would
young ones were not going to have anything. And how do we sustain this over a long period of time? And then I think whenever everybody kind of saw the writing on the wall, where it's like, this is going to hurt now. I mean, I don't get what this guy retired when he retired 5 years ago. I won't get that pension, but I'm watching Houston. I'm watching Austin. I'm watching all these other big cities just get crushed.
And we were the only big city to tackle the pension and settle it locally and get it stable. Every other major city in the state, the legislature weighed in and settled it and saddled them with huge liability for the city finances.
Wow, so you fixed it.
Yeah, we fixed it. And we got police and fire on board. And at first, they weren't, because the old guard was kind of controlling it because they were about to retire. But we didn't touch what they'd already done. It was going forward, not retrogressive. And now they all understand, just like you said, the younger officers are thankful to have a good pension.
Yeah, I mean, it was it's just
a battle.
Yeah, it was a battle, and it was frustrating, and everybody was trying to, scrapping for what they've earned, what they were promised, because these
and we
guys
didn't cut what they were promised.
Yeah, and that was the other thing. But I mean, I think whenever you had leaders like Manny and some of these people kind of stepping in, who I love, I think he's a great leader for organization and everything. But
Manny's great.
Yeah, but I think that was just something that, again, whenever you start seeing all these other cities where it's like, oh, these guys were promised a pension, or this employee was promised a pension, and then it was just cut completely overnight. Everybody's like, okay, we got to do something.
They did that too. I mean, the legislature did that. And the other piece was they had historically, because general employees, water, parks, rec, all of those aren't unionized. They had cut a lot of pension benefits on the backs of other city employees.
Yep.
And that made a huge break in the employee ranks. People just couldn't stand it. And now it's pretty. It's not perfect, but it's close, and it's getting better every year.
Yep. Yeah.
And it was a huge win. And the first year, when I was running, the then POA president and the president of the 440, which is Fire's unit, said, we will not lose this race. They had a candidate in the race. And
they were running against you.
They said, we had never lost a race that we got in, and we will not lose to you. And, of course, I said, well, you will.
Just watch.
You will. We intend to win this race. I wouldn't be in it if we didn't think we could win it. And I said, and it's the right thing to do for the citizens of Fort Worth.
Okay, so take me back. So you have some friends, people approaching.
As Tom said, when we took our first pension vote one night, late at night, 1 o'clock in the morning, I got home. He said, well, you better hope our house doesn't burn down, because fire isn't coming.
Fire's not coming.
You better not speed tomorrow or run stop signs, because you're going to get a big ticket.
Oh, wow.
But they got used to it pretty quick and knew that we had their hearts and their pensions and their livelihoods in the right.
Yeah.
So take me back to some people approach you, say, we think you should run. What are you like? Heck yeah, I can do that.
No. I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. It's a total different level from tax assessor. I pretty much had the tax office. I think that may be my phone vibrating. Unfortunately, I thought it was off. But I said, I've got the tax office in good shape. I'm down to working 8 or 10 hours a day. And
it's just still a lot of hours.
Yeah, it's still a lot.
It's like normal hours.
When I'm
working 50 hours a week.
When I do something, I do it all in.
Yeah.
Always have.
You go.
And I just kept saying, no, I'm not. And mayor is 24/7. Everybody knows you. Everybody recognizes you. And the mayor's job doesn't pay. I mean, it pays $29,000 a year,
which is absurd.
Yeah. I mean, so I lost $110,000 right off the bat.
Yeah, after already shutting down your business.
Yeah, after shutting down my business. But it's not about the money. It's never been about the money for me. It's about the service. And I spent 6 months saying no to people that were recruiting me. And finally,
what put you over the edge?
Our kids were convinced I should do it.
And how old were the kids at the time?
Catherine was married, out of college. Paul was in college, and Philip was high school, I guess.
And they told you to do it?
Maybe was he high school or college? I don't know. It was 2011, so I guess he was college already.
Okay.
I guess Paul was out of college and Philip was in college. They said, why not, Mom? You've done a great job in the tax office. You just ought to do it. And Tom was a little reluctant. He was like, you're giving up all your anonymity. Everybody, it's just totally different.
Yeah.
But it kept coming. And we finally said, maybe there's something here we need to look at. And finally went to see our minister and sat down. And he said, I've been waiting for you to come in here because there's a door open for you. And I truly believe you ought to step through it.
Whoa. He said that to you?
Yeah. And he laughed and said, But step through it and tell me what the temperature is, and I'll tell you who opened it. He had a really good sense of humor at the time.
That's awesome. That's good.
So we finally sat back and started looking at it and said, well, why not? I mean, really and truly, we're going to live here all our lives. And, we're both born, or I was born here. Tom moved here when he was 4 months old. And our kids are all here, and we want the city to be stable, and we want the city to be a place where people want to be.
Mm-hmm.
So why not? Then I served, never intending to serve 10 years.
Yeah, that's the longest
That's
running.
the longest serving mayor ever in the history of Fort Worth. And I just always assumed I would serve 4 or 6 years and be done.
Because if you do something, you're going hard.
Yeah.
It's the theme.
It's the
theme's going here.
And I was blessed with being out. I go out in the community all the time. I don't think you govern very well behind a desk. I think you have to be where people
But you sort
are,
of
where people
reestablished. I mean, I felt like you took the responsibilities of a mayor and turned it up to 11.
pretty much.
Right. I mean, no one had did what you did.
We had not had good public engagement. People felt like their governance was detached from them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That truly, the average citizen just felt like they loved Mike, but they felt like they just couldn't get to him. And that's, Mike had done it a long time. He did a nice job, and their council members were a little detached, and I felt like that was not the way to grow this city, that to get out, whether it was walking or riding or running or just going to their town halls or walking in their neighborhoods, it gave me a total different perspective on what people needed and what they wanted in their city.
I remember when you started doing that, and I was like, "This is," because again, like traditionally, as a young person, I'm in college or high. Like when I think of city council, like these men in buildings that are distant from me,
And it shouldn't be that way.
Yeah, well, I'm not saying that's necessarily true, but I just remember you came on the scene and you're like doing these bike rallies and these running town halls and it was just people ate it up. I mean, it was crazy. It was like the epitome of grassroots.
Yeah, it was great grassroots.
But
And it was, you
fun.
couldn't do it if it weren't sincere.
Yeah.
People would see right through it. But I loved meeting the people and still love meeting the people. And
But it was fun and vibrant.
It was fun. I mean, we learned a lot and engaged. Started Steer Fort Worth, our young leaders group, because when I was elected the first time in 2011, less than 1% of the voters were under the age of 40. How terrible is that?
That's insane.
I mean, we're making decisions that are going to impact your life for the next 20 or 30 years, and nobody's engaged. So we started Steer Fort Worth for that reason, and they were a great group, still are. And now a couple of them are serving on council.
Yeah, that's pretty neat.
So it's pretty cool. And then the bike rides changed, and the healthy communities, the blue zones, kind of changed people's perception of Fort Worth.
Yeah, 100%.
I agree.
Okay, was there like... were those
It was a lot of work. I worked on average about 14 hours a day.
Were those your ideas? I mean, like, how did you...
The bike ones were my idea.
Okay.
Steer Fort Worth was my idea because I was so frustrated that I couldn't engage young people. I wanted my own children engaged. I wanted their friends engaged, and I wanted the young business leaders engaged. Blue Zones was because I was concerned about the health, because I'd watched through the years the kids in public school and the adults, a huge outbreak of diabetes and high blood pressure and obesity and everything, and knew that long term that was not healthy for a community and not healthy for you. You're not going to have good workers. But the Blue Zones piece, THR, Texas Health Resources, and the Chamber were all working on some community, and UNT on some community health issues. And we kind of came together, and they rolled out this plan. Most of it, I got a kernel of what I'm thinking about, then somebody else kind of helps you flesh it all out.
Yeah.
But I felt like you flipped the switch on what it meant, probably in the campaign too, the initial campaign, and then once you took office, I mean.
Well, I beat 2 former council members who both thought it was their race, and then 2 younger guys who were political novices.
What do you think the secret to that was?
Part of it is just sheer hard work and engaging people. It's just getting out with a lot of shoe leather. The slogan was
shoe leather.
These boots are made for walking, and we had my price tag, and then we had all the pictures of me in my boots and stuff walking all over town, and just I bet we knocked 5,000, 6,000 doors or more.
Wow. So you just outworked them.
Yeah, we just worked harder. And we did 52 debates. And just people see when you're sincere. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't an entitlement. I didn't think it was my race. I thought it would be, could be lost pretty easily, even though I'd served as tax assessor. And I knew we just had to deliver a message people could connect to and outwork them.
And your message was, I'm going to fix this.
My message was, we're going to put the city finances back in shape. We're going to get we're going to get citizens engaged in their city, and we're going to grow this city to a place where everybody wants to live.
And it worked. I think one of the things that I admire about,
and we're going to cut property taxes. That was one of the big things.
People like that.
And we did.
One of the things I admire about you, and I feel like is one of your superpowers. I think you have a lot of superpowers.
I don't know about that.
But one of them is you have this magic ability to make people feel seen, and I have just been at events with you. Like you're going up to everyone. You're saying hi to everyone,
and I just love people.
But there's something magic about that to make someone feel known and seen. Like I've just strangers, people you've never met. You're like hugging them and saying hi and going and sitting down. Like you're talking to everyone, but not in like a political shaking the hands sleazy. It's like when you're with someone, you're like so even if it's for like 2 seconds. I feel like you have some sort of magic ability to make people feel known and seen.
I think you just truly have to care about people.
All right, guys, we're interrupting your podcast experience once again.
I know. I'm sorry.
But we are giving you something for free.
So it's totally worth it.
Yeah.
We recently released a document called The Storytelling Pathway on our website. It is our playbook for success, for growing brands, for marketing. That's literally everything that we do at 6th Avenue Storytelling, and we want to share it with the world. We want to give it to you.
So in addition to these nuggets that you're learning on this podcast, you can get our free playbook, free manual for how you grow your business from
6th Avenue Storytelling. Yeah, it's the storytelling, and it's really, really good.
Where do you find it?
It's 6avenuestorytelling.com.
There you go.
And it's good. Go get it. Go download it. I promise it's going to help your business.
COVID nearly did me in because we couldn't be face to face with so many people, and I just hated Zoom meetings because it's just.
I hate Zoom meetings.
But I've just made a lot of friends. I mean, I was at an event at Rivercrest Country Club the other day, and the wait staff over there, I've known for years. I've seen them, and I hugged them all's neck, and they brought me hot tea and this and that. And somebody said, "How come you're getting this stuff without asking us?" Because they're all friends of mine. They said, "How do you know them?" I said, I just know them.
And you remember everybody's names?
I used to be better at names than I am now. Now there's so many circulating up here. But
do you have a person that's like whispering names in your ear?
Don't.
You know how those politicians have that?
Some politicians have somebody that gives them names. No, I don't. Most of the time, the names will come to me sooner or later. And it's just real rewarding. I was at lunch the other day, and it's been 2 or 3 months ago, and this young man, we were eating lunch, and we finished, and we're waiting on our check, and he didn't bring the check. And finally, I caught his eye and said, "What about my check?" And he said, "You don't get a check today." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "I'm going to buy your lunch." I said, "You do not need to buy my lunch."
Yeah.
He said, "Yes, I do. You read to my son 2 years ago when he was a first grader and wasn't interested in school, couldn't seem to read, and you came and read to his class." And I always tell kids, you have to go home and read. Mm-hmm. You have to read to your siblings. You have to have your parents read to you. It really is the backbone of what you're going to do. And said, he took off. He came running in the house and said, "Daddy, the mayor said I have to read every day, and I'm going to do it." And he said he's top of his class now. He's fourth grade and the best reader in the school, and reads to his little sister all the time. And he said, "I want to buy your lunch." I said, "You don't have to buy my lunch."
But I bet that made you feel like $1 million.
But it made me feel like $1 million.
Oh, man, that's so cool.
And I was at the grocery store the other day, and this young man came over and said, "You don't remember me, I know. I was first grade, and I just graduated high school." No, he said, "I was second grade. I just graduated high school this year. And you came to my school and talked about what it's like to be a mayor, run your own business, and how important reading is." And he said, "It made a huge impact on my life." It just almost made me cry.
Yeah. But
He gave me a big hug, and I was just so thrilled.
But you're always doing that. Like, one of the things I was going to ask you about is just how you had the bandwidth to do, like, and I'll give you an example of just from me and Jimmy on a personal level. Like, I think with the first time we were on a magazine or in a magazine or something, like, I got a handwritten note from you, I don't even know if you wrote it or not, but it was from the mayor's office.
I probably wrote it. I was notorious for writing hundreds of notes.
And it was like I'm so proud of the two men you guys are becoming in your business. And I was like, how? I have it framed on my wall. I was like, how? One, I don't know how she even saw that. Or
time to leisurely read a magazine and then write a note about it.
And mail a note. Yeah. But it's just that it's thoughtful. And there's nothing political about that.
No.
It's just giving.
I was lucky enough that people cared for me when I was young, and people would send me notes and thank me for things I'd done. And my mother always said, 3 days, 3 minutes, 3 lines. That's all it takes to write somebody a note.
Oh, wait, say that one more time.
3 days, 3 minutes, 3 lines. No more than 3 days after you see it. No more than 3 minutes to write it. And just write 3 lines on the note. And she said, you can write hundreds of notes and let people know you care about them.
Yeah.
And it just stuck with me. You know, when your mother tells you something, sometimes it stays in your brain and swirls around.
You see, I would be like, okay, I'm operations, running a business. I'm a mayor of the city. All right, I'm assigning you. You're writing these 30 notes. I don't know who to, but you're in charge of this. You're in charge of this. I don't need efficiency.
Now, we had people like that. I mean, when I had big people I didn't know personally and needed to thank them for something, I had a comm staff, and I'd just say every Monday in our staff meeting, I'd say, I need you to write this group of people and this group. And then I'll pull out the ones I know personally and handwrite them, or the ones I feel strongly about handwriting. Or you write the note and I'll write a note on it.
Yeah.
That's just crazy still. But that is speaking true to you can't fake sincerity, and people can see right through it. And this is your heart. It's like, how do you go to all these events? How do you have the energy? And I mean, what I keep on hearing you say is, I love this. I love serving this. It energizes you. And so how do you have the energy? Well, this is just who you are.
I guess God gave me a talent for connecting with people, and you got to use it.
Did it grow? Did you get more capacity and more energy and more bandwidth the more responsibility you had?
I think the more you do, the more you can do.
Okay.
And you know, as mayor, I did have good help, and I had help that could help me do those things. But your energy builds, and you can just do it. I've always been like that. I mean, Tom's always said you got to meet 20 new people a day, or I can't live with you. From the day, I'll tell you a funny story. It's probably too far back, but we were on our honeymoon, and we were in San Antonio, sitting on the river having breakfast one morning, and this guy came running over and grabbed me and gave me this big kiss and said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "Well, I just got married. This is my husband," and yada, yada, yada. And he said, "I haven't seen you for 2 or 3 years. I'm so glad to see you." And when he left, he said, "Congratulations on your marriage." When he left, Tom said, "Is that how this is going to be?" Is that? And I said, "I don't know, honey." He was in one of my classes in school. He said, "Is that how this is going to be?" And I said,
if he only knew.
"Yeah, probably."
If he only knew.
And 49 years later, he just rolls his eyes and
oh wow,
laughs at me.
That's a great story. What a foreshadow.
Did you ever how did you stay mentally and emotionally healthy? Because to give that level of attention and focus, and as the leader, no one's checking on you. Very few people are pouring that into you. It's like you're pouring that. Like, did you have any habits or things you did?
Yeah, there were just key things. I mean, on my calendar every day is TARP time, and Tim Tarpley is my trainer.
Okay.
And it was usually first thing in the morning.
So
I had a big early breakfast, then it would be lunch. And if lunch was taken, it's later in the day. And it was non-negotiable. I had an hour for exercise because I could get on my bike, or I could get in the pool, or I could lift weights. And in 5 minutes, if you're working hard enough at it, you've forgotten about everything else. You're focusing on how bad it hurts to do that.
So you had accountability. You had a trainer.
I had accountability. I had a trainer. And my staff knew not to mess with that time.
Because you need that. Like exercise is a pretty incredible
tool. It gives you lots of energy. And then I had Friday nights were date night, and we didn't do anything on Friday nights. I stopped working at 4 or 5 every Friday, and
so you do date night every week
on Fridays.
So
and we either stayed home, just Tom and I, or we'd go out with friends, or sometimes we were babysitting, And then Sundays after church are always family time. And we didn't always see all of them at once, but we'd make time to go see.
Like get together with the kids.
Get together with the kids, or ride our bikes over to somebody's house or something like that. And while occasionally I did work on Sundays, but usually if I was working on Sundays, it was something I could take grandkids to, or Tom would go with me. Mm-hmm. But we tried to limit that because that was family time.
So exercise almost every day?
6 days a week.
6 days a week. Date nights to make sure you're because that's like the most important relationship.
It's the most important. You're going to spend more time with your spouse in your life than you ever will with your children or grandchildren.
In 49 years.
And you better make sure that they're your best friend.
Yeah. How many years did you say?
49. March will be 50.
That's so cool.
Wow.
That's really cool.
That's
a long
amazing.
time.
So and y'all, I mean,
he's put up with a heck of a lot.
Oh, I'm sure. But I think like to still be dating each other, to still date nights every week, like that's
pretty special.
Pretty awesome.
It's pretty special. He's pretty special.
And then family time every Sunday. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Those are just non-negotiable.
Yeah. And you felt like that helped.
Yeah. It helps your stress.
Okay.
Do you have time
and then
in there?
Occasionally you just have to say,
no. I'm
done. I'm toast.
Yeah.
I can't do this another day. I need a day off, or I need, I'm not going to work till 10 o'clock tonight. I'm only going to work till 5, and I'm going home. And I'm not coming in till 9 or 10. I didn't go in real early. I usually went in about 9.
What is your? And you said you're a night owl.
I'm not
Were you
so much anymore.
Were you still a night owl?
No, not so much anymore.
Okay.
I had too many years of having to be up early to be much of a night owl now.
What is like your morning? Like what do you eat and drink and do?
I'm not a coffee drinker, but I drink hot tea.
Hot tea?
The first thing I do every morning is get a cup of hot tea.
Okay.
I make a cup of hot tea, and I like to read. I read the paper online, the digital paper, and scan across a couple of other news sources. Then I usually go work out.
Okay.
And that's usually the routine. Tom walks the dogs. He has coffee and walks the dogs. And does his thing, and then we come back and get dressed and hit the road.
And then go.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. It's like
some days I have to go to breakfast. Like tomorrow, I have to be at breakfast at 7:30, and I'll come back and work out after that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
I love that. That's such a big part of your.
It keeps me sane.
Yeah,
man.
Because that type of energy really creates more energy. Like exercise is one of those things that, like, man, the more you do it, it really
So my friends all say, well, you ought to be thin. I said, oh, no, I like good food, good wine. Way too well to be thin.
Yeah.
It's not about being thin anyway. It's about being fit and being
healthy. That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
What during your time of mayor, what do you feel like the hardest season was? And it doesn't have to be a long answer if you don't want to be, but hardest season and I guess most successful season.
Oh, there were several really hard ones. When Garrett Hull was shot and killed, our officer, that was incredibly hard. Anyone that's ever gone through losing an officer, I can't imagine what their families go through, but just the organization, it's gut-wrenching. These guys give their life and go down in tragic situations.
Yeah.
You know? We had 2 or 3 other officers that were critically injured, and it's just gut-wrenching. The Tatiana Jefferson shooting was equally gut-wrenching on the other side. I mean, a brilliant young woman lost her life in a tragic accident, and you'll have an officer, I mean, he may go to jail for the rest of his life. He'll be tried shortly. Those were very trying times, and of course then that was it. Shooting of a Tatiana Jefferson was just at the forerunner of all the race relation issues, and
that's right.
Brought to light a lot of things.
Sure.
Best season. Oh, there were so many wins, from redoing the stockyards, which was a huge win, to Dickies, to the being able to get Butler and Cavill Place demolished and begin to see things coming up in Cavill, Butler still on the table, how that's going to be.
Yeah.
The A&M announcement a month or so ago was a big deal that we've been working on. Just a lot of big wins.
Yeah.
Was there a moment where you're like, I've made it? I'm sick. This is, I mean, like you step back and like, this is pretty dang cool that I've.
I don't know. It's hard to identify any one moment. I guess when I actually left in this past June, and they had a big going away party for me, and had 825 people showed up.
That's a lot of people.
The next morning, I thought, this is almost overwhelming to think that many people would take their evening to come out and tell me thank you. Mm-hmm. It's hard to believe that you touched that many people.
Have you got to process that yet and kind of internalize that and be like, I'm proud of this? Like, this is,
I get to drive around the city now and around the region and see things that we had a big hand in. And it's pretty cool to be able to go, oh, we had a hand in that. We were able to get that done. A new business here, and we were able to get that done, or a new process or something. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Do you have anything that you feel like you're the most proud of? Like, I am so proud that we did this that I accomplished this. Like, is there anything you're particularly...
Yeah, I'm really passionate about community health, because when we started working on Fitworth Children's Health, and when we started working on the Blue Zones Project, Gallup Wellbeing surveys the top 185, 190 cities in the nation every year to see, runs the gamut from physical health to mental health to financial health to your satisfaction with the community, satisfaction with your leaders. And 7 years ago, we were number 185 on the least healthy in the Gallup Wellbeing poll. And last year, we were number 32 on most healthy.
Most healthy?
Most healthy. That's incredible jump. Incredible jump for us. People's, and that's coming out of COVID. And the cool thing is the nation's health has been declining, and the state of Texas declining. And we were going up. And during COVID, we didn't lose any ground. We didn't escalate as much, but we stayed stable while the rest of the country went down. I'm incredibly proud of. And that run the gamut from putting in new sidewalks and street lights to make communities safer, to just opening parks, all kinds of stuff, so that people feel good about where they're living. And clearly, you've got detractors and you've got haters who don't think you did enough in this one area or that. And I'd love to say you can make everybody happy, but I'm not that naive to think that you can.
That's a good question. One of my things I had is like the thick skin that you have to have whenever you do, like, how much do you read like Facebook or Instagram or newspaper articles of like opinion articles, opinion editorials? Like, how often do you hear about those? Do you just get briefed on it? And like, whenever they're negative press, it's like, do you just ignore it? Do you say, I'm moving on? Do you, like, how is that process? How do you internalize that? How do you deal with it?
I think you never want to be thick-skinned.
Okay.
You want to learn to let things just slide off of you. But you can't ever be thick-skinned, because then you're become calloused. And if you're calloused, you've stopped being a good servant.
That's good. That's good.
A lot of things, I don't read a lot of Facebook posts.
Sure.
Because if you dig in and really look, it's the same small group over and over who are the haters and the trolls and things. And, they're certainly entitled to their opinion, and I get that. And we would reach out and try to connect with them, but some of them you just never going to, the anonymity of being behind a keyboard. They just do.
But did you ever get just like beaten down? Like,
no, rarely.
Rarely?
I think that most good leaders know that they're going to get challenged at some point. And God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. You listen twice as much as you speak. And you weigh your decisions out, and you make them carefully, and you feel good about your decisions. And if you know that the vast majority of people agree with that, it's easy to move on. You never want to say, I'm right all the time, because you're not. I mean, I've made decisions that I went, mea culpa, we're going to have to revisit that. It just wasn't right. We didn't have enough input. But you can't be, if you're a strong leader, you can't be second-guessing everything that you do.
Yeah.
And you can't be doing decisions by consensus.
Yeah.
If you're going to lead, you have to realize that at some point you have to make the decision activate it and move on.
Yep.
Did you learn that? Like, was that a lesson you learned after a couple of years, or did you go into it sort of mentally prepared for that?
I think I went into it kind of mentally prepared. I mean, I'd had 10 years in the tax office and 20 years in other organizations.
Shaking things up.
You just gradually learn, first you're a foot soldier and then you're the leader, and you watch the people that you admire, how they make decisions, and you figure it out.
Yeah. I will say, like, I always thought, man, being mayor would be so fun. Betsy looks like she's
half the time it is fun, but boy,
then
sometimes it's not.
2020 hit, and I was like, you could not pay me all the money in the world to be in your position.
2020 was a trying year because it was such an unknown.
Yeah, and you're damned if you do and damned if you don't.
Damned if you do and damned if you don't.
It was like you had to make some
We made some really hard decisions, and most of them were not popular, but they saved lives.
Mm-hmm.
They did, and we didn't make them in a vacuum. We got great input, but you got to realize when this started, and we had to shut businesses down, which was probably the hardest thing I've ever done.
Mm-hmm.
Being a business owner and knowing all these businesses, it's just government shouldn't do that. But we didn't even have adequate testing. We couldn't tell you who was likely to have it, what part of the city it was in, was it in our schools, was it our kids, was it adults, how was it spread?
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't even at first know how it was spread. And the recommendation, and the governor and the president both, and, Trump's a very conservative businessman too, but was it shut down till we get them? We didn't have enough PPE for our hospitals. They didn't have enough gowns and gloves and masks and ventilators. We were on the verge of overwhelming the hospitals, and we didn't do it alone. It came down from the governor and came to the county judge, and then we, of course, Fort Worth's in 4 different counties, so that left the mayor to spread the order from Tarrant County into the
and everyone's
other counties.
Looking at
and
you.
Everybody's pointing at you.
Looking at you. How?
And they looked to us to. We did a Facebook Live every single day for
Remember that?
probably 6 months.
But that was a neat way to just show up.
People got to depend on it because it was just kind of no nonsense. Here's what we know today, folks.
Yeah.
I won't tell you we know everything. I won't tell you that what we told you yesterday hasn't changed today.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what I know today. And we had medical professionals and the health department professionals and business owners all with us to talk about it. And it was a tough time, but
Did you feel the weight?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Did you lose sleep?
Yeah, I lost a lot of sleep.
I mean, I can't.
During that time. You just do. You just. But you go home and you're exhausted and you sleep anyway. My staff did too. I mean, we spent almost every day in the emergency operations center. And if anyone that's been in the emergency operations center, it's the heartbeat of the operation.
Mm-hmm.
It's high intensity and high stress.
Yeah.
Because they're making life decisions based on what the hospitals can and can't do, what the state's going to recommend, what the Fed's going to tell you. And you may issue an order, and an hour later they may change their mind.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
I mean, we had that happen.
Yeah. And a lot of people don't know that. They're thinking, oh, well, the mayor's making all these decisions. And you're like, no, this was a federal this is a federal mandate we have to do. But,
Or it was a recommendation. And early
a strong
on,
recommendation.
the very first time we shut down business, we were the last to shut down businesses in Tarrant County, and we were the first to reopen businesses. We just fought it as long as we could.
Sure.
Dallas and Houston and Austin and San Antonio were already shut down. We were on the phone every morning with the top Dallas, Houston, Austin, El Paso, San Antonio, and Fort Worth, the mayors and then the county judges from those counties discussing it all. And we had the governor on most days, or his Tatum, Nim Kidd from Department of Emergency Management, and, got to question the recommendations. And at first they said, we're going to let the mayors make these and the county judges, because the county judge is actually the emergency director for the county. And then the mayor of the largest city is the assistant on it. And, they said, we'll let you make the decisions, but here's the recommendations. And then very quickly they turned around and said, we're going to issue these statewide recommendations.
Yeah. You just had to comply. Yeah. So I thought for sure after all of that, I was like, she's got to be exhausted. She's not going to run. Okay. And you stepped down. And I was like, okay, Betsy's going to chill for a little bit. And you didn't. You chilled for about 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
before announcing that you're running again, can you talk a little bit about that and why?
Yeah, I really thought that I was done, that I was ready to.
You didn't know you were going to do that?
I had thought about that because I didn't know what Judge Whitley was going to do, but I did know that if he stepped down, there was going to be a huge hole at the county, not just from the judge, but 2 commissioners are retiring.
Yeah.
And in 2 years, the other 2 commissioners will retire. And then Glenn announced he was retiring as county judge. County administrator hasn't said whether he's leaving or not, but he laughs and says, I'm not staying too long. We'll have a new hospital director because Robert Early just announced his real key positions. I think the paper said 66 years of institutional knowledge leaving the county.
Wow.
And so when Glenn called me and said, I'm going to step down and you are the logical choice to do this job. You have county experience. You have great administrative experience as mayor. I just thought, I've still got a passion to serve. I'm not done. I feel like there's a place.
You felt like you weren't done.
I felt like I wasn't done. And it wasn't just for me. I felt like I still had something to offer.
Yeah.
And I looked around at the field of people that were out there and thought, there's nobody here with any experience. Yeah. There's nobody here with any passion for this county. To do this job, you've got to have a burning passion about the place you live and the place you serve. And if you don't, it becomes drudgery. I mean, I've seen elected officials who were
hating
lukewarm about things, and after 6 months or a year, they're kind of like, okay, I'm just treading water here because they don't have the passion to do it. They don't have the passion to serve, and they don't have a passion for the job they're doing. And I still have a passion and a fire to do it. And I looked at that and thought, I still have something to offer here. And hopefully the voters will think the same thing.
Yeah, I am sure they.
Well, we'll see.
I think that's
you never take anything for granted.
Yeah,
that's something. There's something to be said about that. I mean, if you're working your way from tax assessor to mayor, I mean, everybody's the next expectation is you're jumping to some sort of the next political hierarchy, and you're deciding that's not what I'm doing. I became to serve.
People thought you were going to do the Kay Granger.
Yeah, people thought I was going to Washington or at bare minimum going to Austin for a statewide office. And I've had the opportunity. I've been offered backers who said, we'll back you in this because you ought to do it. But I don't want to leave Tarrant County and Fort Worth. I love this region. This is home. I think nobody makes more, impact on people's lives than local government. You can serve in Washington, but they're very detached from local government.
Yes.
You can serve in Austin. They're probably a little closer, but they're still fairly detached. If you serve locally, you can change people's lives for the better.
If you had to give, just a few more questions, but if you had to give, I feel like, in order to join politics, you have, like, people assume if I'm going to join politics, I either have to have a business or a lot of money to join it, or I have to be in the crowd, in the know. I have to be, well, especially in Fort Worth, I got to be born in that Fort Worth money, the Fort Worth scene. If you are giving some advice to, someone in their 20s, someone in their 30s that, whether they're in a private industry or even in government, local government, like, what is your advice to, like, someone that's wanting to get into politics? What is the wish you would have known right before you taking that tax assessor spot? Is it you need a drive and a heart? Like, is it like, because it sounds like you kept on saying, you have to have a heart for the city. You have to. You
do.
What is some of the other pieces of advice that you would give to them?
Well, I think first and foremost, you need to have a passion for what you're doing. You need to know why you want to be engaged.
Yeah.
Do you want to be engaged to change one specific thing, or do you want to be engaged to change the quality of life for your community, or to keep it on the up and up? Do you want to bring more jobs in?
Sure.
What is it you're looking to do? Or do you just want to throw the bums that are serving out and start over with younger, fresher faces? And that's sometimes much needed.
Sure.
So I think that passion is key. And the other piece is, first and foremost, you better darn sure know who your current elected officials are and what they do. You'd be shocked at the number of people you say, who's your school board member? I don't have a clue.
Yeah.
Well, who's the superintendent? They don't have a clue. Who's the county judge? Well, I don't know what the county judge does. Are they judicial? No, it's an administrative position.
Yeah.
Who's your, everybody will know the mayor. That's a given. In large cities, people are going to know their mayor. Somebody told me years ago, said, the two most recognizable people in the state are the mayors of the big city and the governor.
Yeah.
And that's true. I mean, I can go, but with TV and Facebook and everything, I can go all over this state. People will know me.
Yeah.
I'm not patting myself on the back. They just do because you're exposed. But people don't know their council members in many cases.
Sure.
Find out who they are and follow them and see what kind of decisions they're making. Because if you don't get engaged, you don't have much voice. But first and foremost, you got to vote.
Yeah.
And local elections turnout is often very low, and you really don't have a say-so in what's happening if you don't vote.
So you feel like you were able to
And don't go vote just because your friend tells you who to vote for.
Yeah, that's right. Or if Facebook tells you who to vote, or your friends
Find
on
out
Facebook.
who they are.
That's right. It's good, yeah, because it feels like you were able to get involved, kind of indirectly almost, from the tax assessor spot, just because of your career. You already knew what your passion was, and it was a not easy leap, but it's seemingly easy leap for you.
Well, it's never easy, but anything worth doing is not easy. You guys know that.
Yeah, that is true.
Y'all have done.
It's all hard. Yeah.
It's all hard. But we wouldn't be strong people if we tackled all the easy projects. It makes you stronger.
Can you talk? I wanted to ask you about that. So, the struggle, the challenges when things go wrong are generally when you learn. Those are when you learn and get better and grow.
Yeah, good leaders are not afraid of failure, because I always tell people, if you haven't had a failure recently, then you're not doing enough. You are not trying enough.
Amen to
and
that.
that failure ought to be your learning opportunity. There's no winning or losing. There's only winning and learning.
Can you talk about some of the things you learned? Like these are some big lessons that changed the way I think or how I lead or what I do, like just lessons coming out of these
Yeah, I mean, first you got to know people. You got to be out talking to people and finding what your direction is maybe not what the direction of the group you're going to lead really needs. You have to find out what that group wants, and you got to be willing to listen to everybody. You can't be just on one side of the game and expect everybody to accept it. You have to, clearly you lean left or you lean right, but you're going to get input from all over, and you're never going to change your core values. You shouldn't ever change your core values, but you do have to listen to people, and you have to give credence to what they're telling you when you make decisions, and it's just not done in a vacuum. Nothing you do if you're leading is going to be done in a vacuum. And don't be afraid to take chances, and don't be afraid to fail. You just have to be bold enough to know that you're going to fall flat on your face and people are going to laugh at several times, and you just get up, join the laughter, and go on.
Yeah. That's good.
And it's not personal. I mean, there's an old adage, it's not personal, it's business. Well, it's not personal, it's politics or it's service. And you can't, if you take everything personal, you'll never get anywhere.
Yeah.
You just won't, because people want to make stuff too personal, particularly today with social media. It gets real personal. And don't read all that stuff all the time.
Yeah. Don't let it eat you up.
Don't let it eat you up.
Do you have any core values as a person or as a family, or when you were made, you mentioned your core values? Do you have these are things I say all the time, or some of my values are?
Well, first and foremost, my family is most important, and I'm always going to I never have regretted not doing some occasion if I had a family function. Okay. I've never failed to put my family first and missed things and regretted it because I put my family first. I never will.
Yeah.
You have to take time for your family.
Yeah.
And you have to take time for your faith.
Yeah.
You got to have a faith. No matter how you worship or what you do, you got to have faith of some sort.
Yeah.
Those are the real core values. And then the other core value is I don't believe government can do everything for you. I think that people have to do it. Government should be there only to facilitate what citizens and business need, not to run your life. Fundamentally, smaller government is always going to be the best. Communities with smaller government that are there to help you, that are listening to your ideas, not pushing them down from their side, really is what this country's founded on. And it's always about service before self. If I taught my children nothing else, I hope they learned that.
I am sure, yeah.
Sometimes they don't like me for it.
Yeah, I'm sure you exemplified that.
Well, I was going to say thank you for coming on and sharing time. We know you got other podcasts and meetings to do.
It's okay. Y'all are
getting
delightful.
going.
Y'all are easy anyway.
Yeah, we
just friends.
Well, we wanted to. I mean, we want to ask those questions and get to know you in another way. That hopefully ask you some questions that you don't get to answer a lot.
Yeah.
Here's some side that not many people get to hear.
You make me think.
Yeah, there you go. That's what we hope to do.
We always ask this. We always ask about legacy. Like what do you 10, 15 years from now? I know, and we've talked a lot about the stuff you're very proud of. Yeah. You have a lot of legacy. You've shaped this city in
I've been blessed.
Giant way. Do you, when you think about that though, what does that mean to you? Your legacy. Like, what do you really want?
Somebody asked me that the other day. What do you want to be remembered for? Mm-hmm. I really want to be remembered as being a people's mayor. As being someone who cared deeply about the people and was willing to get out and talk to them all and listen to them.
Yeah.
I think Bob Bolin was the last really strong mayor that we had. We've had strong mayors since then, but he was the last one who really connected in the community, that people said, Bob is my mayor. Mm-hmm. I mean, people of every walk of life thought Bob was theirs, and I really would like to be remembered as being the one that cared about the people.
Mm. I think you will. I remember, just maybe it was in your first or second term, just especially my neighborhood, which is I'm in Fairmount, which is politically
very active,
very active, but
and very diverse,
But you were doing the bike things on Magnolia, and just everyone knew you and loved you, and it was just it really it changed the game. It went from sort of this I don't know.
I always want to be the one that I could go to people and connect with them, and not people feel like they had to get permission to come to me. Mm-hmm. And I just think that's the way your public service people are.
It's a proactiveness.
It's a proactiveness.
Yeah. That's neat.
Besides, all those people you meet make your life so much richer, so much more interesting.
Yeah.
To think about all the characters I've met and all the text messages I still get from some of them, One of them, that my kids just still think is hilarious was Russ Martin, the shock jock. Yeah. And Russ and I got to be really close friends, and he called me Mama Bear. And
oh, really?
I miss Russ terribly. Yeah. And people still say, oh, my gosh, I loved it when you were on the Russ Martin show, because you and he just went at each other all the time.
Oh, my gosh. He's a character.
He was quite a character.
Oh, yeah.
Very off the wall, but great guy with a huge heart.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's right. He did.
Well, thank you for doing this. You are inspiring. We're excited for the next season.
Thank you.
What's coming next, which the future Tarrant County judge. I'm just going to speak that into
existence.
Mm-hmm. I believe it. But it's been just a pleasure to just be on the sidelines, just seeing you go and cheering you on, and you have made our city a special place. It always has been, but I feel like you truly put your heart and soul into it and have shaped what Fort Worth is today. Fort
Worth's a city of character, made up of great characters, and I think sometimes I'm the biggest character to bunch.
That's awesome.
I like it.
Well, thank you all. Thank you so much.
It's been great fun. I appreciate being with you.
Yeah.
Now get engaged.
Yeah, that's right.
Congratulations, you made it all the way to the end. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Stories with Soul. If you enjoyed the interview and like what you heard, please help us out and share, subscribe, and like anywhere you listen to podcasts. When you share and subscribe, it is insanely helpful and allows us to keep producing new episodes. You can always join us directly in the studio by watching the video version on our website, 6thAveStorytelling.com. Stories with Soul is brought to you by 6th Ave Storytelling, an organic marketing company building standout brands on the foundation of story. You're obsessed with your business, and we want to make the world obsessed with it too. Thanks for listening.